Hi everyone, my name is Kelly Chau and I'm a second year MD and PH student at the LSU Health New Orleans Schools of Medicine and Public Health, and I'll be discussing my work on a systematic review about the role of minority stress processes on smoking behaviors among LGBTQ individuals. So we know that smoking greatly impacts health and plays a role in many disease processes universally, but I'll be discussing some of the specific factors and outcomes in LGBTQ smokers and how smoking disparities present in that population. So LGBTQ individuals are much more likely to smoke than non-LGBTQ individuals, and you can see those statistics here. And actually, smoking cessation interventions that are only for LGBTQ smokers generally result in higher quit rates than those for the general public. But there are a lot of barriers in this population, including higher nicotine dependence, low self-efficacy, community norms, and minority stress, as well as a lack of culturally tailored smoking cessation programs. So the minority stress model theorizes that discriminatory, victimizing, and stigmatizing experiences aimed at individuals or groups of minority status can contribute to poor mental health in these populations. And it's been theorized that smoking is a coping mechanism for LGBTQ individuals facing minority stress, which could be one of the reasons why the smoking rates are higher in this population. However, no studies have examined the exact effect that minority stress has on smoking in LGBTQ populations. So our systematic review looked at three main processes of minority stress, namely internalized homophobia or queerphobia, perceived stigma, and direct prejudice events. So we searched the PubMed, EBSCO, and PsycInfo databases for smoking LGBTQ and minority stress-related terms without using any date or geographic limits and using the inclusion criteria listed here. And in figure 1, you can see our article screening process. And in figure 2, you can see a sample of our systematic review matrix that we use to analyze each article. We flagged 49 for inclusion and 35 articles were included in the final review. And to the left, you can see a pie chart showing the number of studies that focused on each given population of interest. So that includes 30 studies, and then the other 5 were overlapping in one of those subcategories. And across all studies, we found that increased levels of minority stress processes, either internalized stigma, perceived stigma, or prejudice events, were associated with increased probability of historical or current cigarette use in LGBTQ individuals. We also found that increased minority stress was associated with greater psychological distress or mental health decline. And there were some limitations. So first, not all of the studies use the same definition of sexual orientation. Some use self-report, some use past romantic or sexual experiences. And likewise, not all of the studies use the same ways to measure smoking. So some use historical lifetime use, some use number of cigarettes smoked daily, others use self-reports, etc. And then lastly, not all of these studies used a validated method to assess minority stress. But given all of that, the findings of this review still suggest that minority stress processes do represent a contributing factor to smoking health disparities in LGBTQ populations and highlight the need for smoking cessation and prevention programs to address minority stress and improve smoking disparities in these populations. So some major areas of concern are the greater likelihood of poor mental health status and development of a tobacco use disorder in LGBTQ individuals afflicted by minority stress. So as you can imagine, all of the historical and current anti-LGBTQ stigma and discrimination in society can lead individuals to conceal their identity, can lead to social isolation, can lead to impaired access to healthcare. And all of those combined experiences of queer phobia, stigma, or direct displays of prejudice can lead to adverse health effects and unhealthy coping mechanisms, including smoking. So as far as smoking cessation and prevention goes, we really need ways to assess minority stress, ways to validate LGBTQ identity and relationships, ways to promote social and community connectedness, and we need integrated behavioral health care to teach healthy coping mechanisms and address those mental health effects. So that could include interventions like counseling or cognitive behavioral therapy to decrease those depressive symptoms associated with discrimination and prejudice. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.